Welcome to yet another edition of As It Is Written. I'm your host for tonight's program, Daweed Ben Yisrael. We're coming to you live from the Cultural Center of the New Covenant Congregation of Israel, 3901A Covington Highway in Decatur, Georgia. We appreciate you tuning in. We're glad that you can be with us. We have a great show for you tonight. We're going to deal with America's economic woes and the things that are happening because America continues to be in the throes of a collapsing economic climate that few people could have imagined would ever happen. Most people think that the recovery would take a while, but what if things are not going to ever get better? What if this is the calm before the storm? Our topic for today, the Bible prophecy regarding the global economic collapse. And on the panel, I have with me Johanna Bat Yisrael.
Shalom.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
And this topic has got to be one that people have got to be prepared to deal with. I mean, it's whether they like it or not, the economy is really all over the place. I mean, isn't it interesting that the whole world is experiencing money problems at once?
Yeah, absolutely right. It's phenomenal to even think that would be the case because, we generally think of what's going on, at home or, where you're presently at. Mm-hmm. And to, like you said, to, look at the news and such and see that all these things are going on throughout the entire world. Mm-hmm. Surely even the person who doesn't consider Bible prophecy or doesn't consider anything in the latter days, there should definitely be a hint to them to say something's going on wrong here.
Right, because if you listen from the perspective of this country, mm-hmm. you think it's a Republican versus Democratic problem.
Right.
But how does that play if you're in another country?
Absolutely.
I mean, it obviously has to be bigger than what's happening just in America. It's got to be something that is affecting the entire world all at the same time. I mean, because when you look at it, everybody is operating under a similar type of a structure, monetary structure, but not necessarily the same monetary structure. Right. I mean, isn't most of the world like agrarian, or wasn't used to be an agrarian-based society? Yeah,
you're right. Because the rest of all the world, at one point in time was agrarian, and the world's, particularly here in America,
an agrarian being based in farm.
Yes, exactly, okay. Farming and so forth. And that has been the case here in this country alone, I'd say, until around the 1800s and so forth. Really, pretty much right around the time they released our people as slaves.
Okay.
Because at that point they wanted to put us into the factories, and, other things that they wanted to do, still sharecropping and things of that sort. And I should say us in factories didn't happen until much further on. But yes, the system, when you're talking about the agrarian system, it's more of something where it's more self self-sufficient. You know, one family, one community, they're growing their own foods. They're out on the land. They're able to grow. And, you know, you fast forward to something like today, where this is certainly industrial society, and, you know, even to the point of digital and things of that sort. You get to where you're totally away from that self-sufficiency and into total reliance. So now you're totally reliant. So if you're hungry, you don't have your garden to go to. You don't have your fields to go to. You go to the grocery store. If the grocery store doesn't have anything, you're just still hungry.
Right. So in essence, those skills are almost lost completely. Something that was basic, and even if you go back and read in the Bible, you know, Adam was said to have been like the first farmer. He was able to get things to come up out the ground with little or no effort whatsoever. But now, man has been so removed from being in tune with not just the land, but with the climate and everything else, that the whole economy of farming is almost completely gone.
Yes.
And like you said, now that also means that trading, where people have their own goods and they trade goods for another, bartering as people like to call it, is also gone. Everything is now based simply in some form of economy. And capitalism then obviously starts to rule everything everywhere.
Right.
And that's kind of that's a new concept, because there are a lot of nations that never even believed in it. But you know, America is what people might consider the World Trade Center, and to the point that America had buildings that were destroyed that were the World Trade Centers.
Right.
But truly, it's that trade that made America, I want to say, not just strong in the world, but also reach out to all the world, because all the other countries wanted to be involved with the trade with America. Isn't that true?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you know, just like you said, America, just like the scriptures tell us, you know, hammer of the world, you know, hammer of the earth. And those things that are affected in America are affected overseas and everything else, particularly today. And we know, especially because America has housed for the last almost 400 years, you know, Yahweh's chosen people, the Hebrew Israelites.
And that obviously has a tie into our topic. So when you look at money, you know, money was preceded by other things. I mean, you know, school kids find out that the Manhattan Island was supposedly bought with trinkets and jewels and that sort of thing. So before money, there was silver and gold. I mean, isn't it amazing that we've come from a position to where the money, you know, and the wealth used to be based on something so readily available in the ground, in essence.
Yeah.
You know, that's truly coming forth out of the ground, just as we talked about the farming. The minerals of the earth were actually the wealth of the earth.
Correct.
And there was a tie-in and a way that man had a specific direction, direct contact with things that came directly out of the earth. But those precious metals then gave way to coins.
Right.
So, I mean, let's talk a little bit about that transition, because obviously, why wouldn't people just keep using the precious metals?
Right. Well, I mean, you're right, and that's gone back for some time. Money's been in existence for quite some time, in different forms of money. And like you said, you know, eventually to the point where there are coins and so forth. And we even have, you know, situations in the during the time of the Messiah. You know, when the Messiah was asked, you know, about the money and so forth, he said, "Whose face is on it?" It says Caesar. Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. So, you know, that whole coin system and money system's been around. And like you said, it does. You know, it originally comes from the precious metals, and then a lot of the coins, of course, were made of the precious metals. And then you kind of fast forward on to, you know, closer to today. You take those metals and you remove a lot of the precious metals of it, and then it's more base metals, and you get into paper money.
So you mean the actual coins no longer have any substance? There's nothing in it but junk metals.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Especially today, in the case of, and this is pretty recent, the last few years, the fact that the copper, the value of copper had gone up so much that the literal penny was worth the actual penny coin, the money of it, the metal of it was worth more than the penny itself.
And the value of the
exactly,
penny.
which is pretty amazing. Which is why they had to switch it out. And if I pay attention to that, you'll notice that the pennies of today are much lighter. You know, so it's obviously not much or any at all copper in it.
Okay, so that's a good segue, because coins gave way to bills. I mean, you know, obviously people who carry coins, you have that weight in your pocket, you're jingling as you walk and all sorts of things. So that gave way to people carrying bills. And bills obviously allowed people to travel greater distances with less, camels or what other livestock that was needed to pull these great amounts of wealth with them. As a matter of fact, we read in Solomon's time that when they were coming to see him, they would come on camels and they would bring their wealth with them on the backs of these camels because, I mean, if you're dealing with coins and precious metals, it weighs a lot.
Absolutely.
So that transition was huge to go from coins to bills. But, as of late, in the last maybe 100 years or so, we've seen yet another transition to where you've gone from coins onto bills and then onto checking.
Right.
And using checks.
Right.
What impact does using checks have on a person when they're dealing with money?
Well, I mean, a check is a promissory note, and that, I guess, is kind of similar to, it's kind of similar to what those bills started to become, because when they changed, I think it was FDR around that time, they got rid of the gold backing of the dollar bills. They became literally a promissory note, which is pretty much equivalent to that check that has been written.
That's a good point.
So you have, so basically, and I don't think, it's been mentioned like that too much, but that check, it's valid because of your personal signature. That dollar bill that we have is valid because we believe it's valid.
Or the signature of the
governing body.
Governing body, right?
Yeah.
It says that it's going to carry some weight. And in essence, when you use a check, you now have removed the connection that you had with the actual bill, to the point that you could write a check for money that you didn't actually have available.
Right,
and that used to be the way that our folks used to get by. They would write a check on Monday, hoping that they'd have the money by Thursday to cover the check and get it in the bank by Friday. And that was the economics of the hood back in the day, having that little bit of leeway between the time that a check was written and the money had to be or given. And even to the point, if something was mailed, you had yet more time.
Right.
So, you see that there's changes in the way that things are dealt with, and that gave way after the checks to credit cards. So yet another strange means of passing money from person to person.
Yeah, and it's funny you speak on that whole the idea of post dating a check or writing a check where there's no funds there. And wild enough, that's what the American government has been doing.
Right.
So that's on such a larger scale. So instead of the issue of being a $50 check not being able to be covered, we're now into the situation where they're trying to remove certain government services and everything else because their check's no good, basically.
Right. I mean, that's a good point. Debt is the new money. People are carrying more debt than they're carrying wealth in these days because of what's going on globally. So just to move through this, we talked about coins, we talked about bills, checks to cards. Now we've got electronic commerce. And so a person with a computer can now send money to another person, but never actually have to physically handle money. And these things have a tendency to detach a person from the actual the good feeling, let's just say, of actually having some money in your hand or in your pocket. And these things seem like they're unrelated, but in essence they're not. I mean, when you go from electronics or being able to buy things with smartphones and all this, you have now literally made it so that a person could care less about the actual money.
Right. Which means that you wouldn't mind, it seems to how, like we just stated, that this whole idea of money has now become an idea of debt. You don't care where that money comes from. So before, if you're in America, you want $1. You don't want a peso, you don't want a euro, you want $1.
Good point.
You don't want a yen. But if you continue, like you said, you continue to move it away from the cash society and more into that, digital area and that virtual money, then we don't really care anymore who is, who is backing this. We don't care where that's coming from, which is moving us further towards a one world currency. One world currency.
Which of course is not a new concept. Let's go ahead and pick some stuff up from the scriptures. I knew that everybody was waiting for us to get to that, but when you look at what is historically written, people don't think that the Bible is a history book.
Right.
But yet and still, the things that we need to know are quite often available for us if we just search the scriptures. So I'm going to go to Genesis 47 and just pick up briefly an instance where we're looking at an idea of a one world order. Let's go to Genesis 47, and this is when Joseph was in Egypt, and his brethren were coming to Egypt as well because of the famine in their land. And I'm just going to pick up, let's pick it up at verse 10. It says, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from before Pharaoh, and Joseph placed his father and his brethren and gave them a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph nourished his father and his brethren and all his father's household with bread according to their families. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore. So the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. When the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. So here we have a situation where the nations had to come up to Egypt for their food, literally, and the money system collapsed.
Right.
So once again, this is not a new concept. People think that what's going on in the world has never happened, but we see right here that there is a collapse that's taking place, and as you said, a conjoining of all of these nations coming to Egypt to participate, which in essence starts to roll out that whole concept of one world order.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, that's amazing, and it's extremely amazing, like you said, because people don't generally read the scriptures, that they'll find the same terminology that's used in the scriptures is used in the secular world. You listen to the news, and how many times we hear about banks failing and countries failing, for that matter. They keep speaking about Greece, and and their whole monetary system is on the verge of failure and such.
And they're not alone. Greece and Spain, and they talk about Italy and a number of other countries who are experiencing the same kind of problems.
Right. And they literally, it's failing, just like it failed here, and just like all the nations, just like you read, all the nations had to come up to Egypt.
Who would think that money could fail?
Exactly.
That money fail. What is that?
Absolutely.
In these modern times. But this is an offshoot of what's been going on in the corporate world, where they talked about globalization, which was corporations. They said they were looking for new markets. They were going out to find new people to buy their products. But in essence, what they were looking for was slave labor. Because as we all know, America's wealth was built on American slavery. That's where most of the wealth of America began as the country was new. So when you look at corporations going out, they're in essence looking for the new slave labor. Now, granted, they pay them. They pay them. They give them a little money, but it's poverty type money. It's money to keep them just above the poverty line, and we see that happening in Americas as well. Right. But it's the corporation's attempt to go out, which is what helps to formulate that whole concept of the one world order.
What's also interesting is the fact that, like you said, they get, they pay them just above slave wages and so forth, but they also create a system whereby these people these countries who weren't previously gotten up to the industrial age and the digital age, they've kind of forced them along very quickly, because all these areas, say in China, 20 years ago, most of the people were still out in the fields. They were still farming. They were still self-sufficient. Now, all those people, the continent, the country of China, has done a lot of damming up of the rivers there, because they have, a lot of really, large rivers. They dammed up the rivers and put the people out. Once they put the people out, they don't have anywhere to go, they don't have any income, they can't farm anymore, and all those things. And it's the promise, just like here in America, the promise of going to the big cities and making big money, and pushed all these people, an entire continent at once, into the industrial age,
cities.
into the cities. So now they're just like us. They're into the cities and totally they're not self-sufficient. Now they're totally reliant upon the government systems, which pushes along this whole one world order that much faster.
And this is all brand new.
Yeah.
This is untested. That whole concept of having a global market was all untested to the countries that were getting involved with it, even to the point in 1993, the formulation of the European Union. I mean, that was something that we knew about for years. But when the European Union, when you had treaties ratified and they rolled out a timetable, those United States of Europe, which were supposed to be some competition for the United States of America, those states now became the new norm, the new economic power, so to speak, because of the weight that they carried. And to the point, they rolled out their own money. So all of these countries that used to have their own money, that carry their own destiny and basically control their own economics, now bought into the concept of a European conglomerate where they were going to be working together. And that has, in essence, destabilized many of these nations. And that's where we see the problems of today.
Right. You speak about the European Union. That goes directly, it's connected with, if we go into Revelation 13. And that's, regarding the prophecy of moving toward the one world order and things of that sort.
Okay.
And in that one, it speaks on, I'll read just the one verse.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Revelations 13:1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And in this, when you do the research, you find that the 7 heads were a conglomeration of the 4 world empires, along with other ruling systems like the Caesars and such. And that was the first portion. The second portion was the 10 horns, and those 10 horns were the 10 kings over the time that have pushed to have world dominance. Those would be people like Mussolini and Napoleon, things of those. And then the third portion that is listed is the 10 crowns. These 10 crowns would be those countries that you're talking about. Those, whether it be the ultimate 10 of those of the European Union when it finally gets whittled down, or those that when it first started at those 10. But those would be, that kind of connects that whole thought of the European Union and that EU system and everything else just connects with that a lot.
So, people read things in the Bible and this being in Revelations, and they think that there's a disconnect between what's actually going on in the world. But as you just said, it tied directly in with what is actually happening. So there's a tie-in between history and modern events. And that's really what we're trying to show people, is that these things that are happening now, they're not haphazard. It's not because one president messed things up and another president can't fix it. That has nothing to do with it. It's just the way that it is working out in front of our eyes. But in essence, the winds, I should say, of this change were talked about many, many, many years ago by the prophets. One other thing that I wanted to kind of deal with is how you've got a lot of countries that are in great peril, and corporations have closed and whatnot. So where is the money gone? People they seem dense to the concept. There was money there, now the money's gone. There, gone.
Yeah.
So that means it's got to be somewhere. And a lot of it has to do with robber barons who have gone out and have actually taken the money out of circulation. You had the savings and loan scandal, you had the Enron, the bank bailouts, the housing bubble, and even Ponzi schemes and that sort of thing. But every single one of those had people who were actually benefiting. You've got some guy who's a CEO of a corporation. He runs a corporation in the ground, and they're paying him the whole time, and then they have to get rid of him, and then they pay him to leave.
Right. Yeah.
So everything about it it seems as if it is, it just doesn't make any sense, but it's done over and over and over and over again, so it must be a plan.
Right.
If it's done that slick, it's got to be a plan.
Right.
And that goes back to the understanding that there are, a small group of people who have made it their decision as to what is going to happen in the world. And so as far as the wealth of the world, it is actually being robbed by the people, or being taxed.
Right. And whether they know it or not, they know that they're following their father.
Absolutely. and to the point, people just miss that individuals make decisions that impact everybody. I wanted to read quickly out of Luke chapter 2. And this is talking about how a ruler can put a decree out and make everybody follow it because he's the ruler.
Okay.
This is at the time when Yeshua was in Jerusalem, and this is actually before his parents, I should say, were coming to Jerusalem to pay their taxes. I'm going to pick it up at Luke chapter 2, verse 1. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus. Now, this is the Caesar who was the ruler of the Italians.
Right.
They call them Romans, but Rome is in Italy, so they had to be Italians. Mafioso, the whole nine. All the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made from Cyrenius, when Cyrenius was governor of Syria. So it's already talking about taxing all the world.
All the world, yeah.
One man is going to tax the world.
Right.
Man, that's gangster. And all went to be taxed, everyone to his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And I don't want to go any further than that. I was just touching upon the fact that one person has made the determination that the entire world would be taxed, and everybody complied.
Right. That whole world domination. It's amazing because, kids watch cartoons and, it used to be anyway, a lot of the cartoons used to be focused around world domination. And you always wonder, Pinky and the Brain and all these other different ones, they want to world domination. That's a ongoing theme, and it's a reason for that. Those empowered are... That's
what they're after.
Absolutely. Before you move on, I just want to pick up a piece in Daniel.
All right.
And let's see. And in this one, it's talking about everybody's familiar with the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but we rarely discuss the fact that that those weren't actually their names. Those are the names that they were given by their Babylonian what do you call captors. They actually had Hebrew names. But let me go into Daniel 3.
All right.
And Daniel 3.
All right. Go ahead and get there.
Okay. Daniel 3 and around 6. Let me see. Okay, so basically, this is a story of. I'll just start reading it at 6.
All right.
And whoso and whoso falleth not down and worship shall the same hour be cast into the midst of the fiery furnace. So basically, they had. As a matter of fact, let me go back a little further. Verse 5. Verse 4. Then an herald cried aloud to you, it is recommended, O people, nations with an S. So more than one nation. Nations again forced to do this, and languages. So nations with many languages. Verse 5. That at the time you hear the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, the sackbut, the psaltery, the dulcimer, and all kinds of music, what do? You fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up. And whoso falleth not down and worship shall the same hour be cast in the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Let me see. And of course, as the story goes on, therefore, at that time, when all the people had heard the sound of the cornet, the flute, the harp, the sackbut, the psaltery, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. And we know, as the story goes on, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had faith in their Creator Yahweh and did not do this. Well, they did not fall down and worship this image, and Yahweh saved them.
Okay.
But that's just, as you were speaking, another instance whereby one nation, one person in that nation, exactly,
Right.
exactly, obviously is controlling not just his own nation, but nations with an S.
But the interesting part about that is, even though one person is in control, they're being controlled.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing that we wanted to touch upon. Let's deal with some of the Bible prophecy in regards to different superpowers. Let's touch upon Genesis chapter 47, and let's deal with Egypt and and the fact that the children of Israel were in Egypt when Egypt was a superpower, and the impact that the children of Israel had in the land of Egypt. I'm going to start reading just a few chapters in Genesis chapter 47 and verse 14. We kind of started reading in some of this. I'm sorry, we actually touched upon that one. Let me go down to 20, Genesis 47 and 20. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt from Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his land because the famine prevailed over them, so the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them from the cities, from one end of the borders of Egypt even to the other end thereof. Only the land of the priests brought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion from Pharaoh, which Pharaoh gave them. Therefore they sold not their land. And Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have bought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. So, of course, the children of Israel being in Pharaoh's land and having this exchange with Pharaoh, they were there up until the days of Moshe. So I'm going to jump ahead a few hundred years here, 430 years here, and pick it up in Exodus chapter 12. And start getting a feel of what was going on when the children of Israel had to leave out of Egypt, because it wasn't just that the children of Israel were in Egypt, they were the wealth of Egypt. They were part of the economic base of Egypt. And so when they were leaving and the plagues had befallen the Egyptians, they wanted, at the last plague, when the children firstborn and all of the firstborn of Egypt were killed, they wanted them out. So if we pick it up in Exodus chapter 12 and verse 35, I just wanted to pick up this couple of quick verses. It says, And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moshe, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment, and Yahweh gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they requested, and they spoiled the Egyptians. So when the children of Israel got all of these jewels from the children of Israel, from the Egyptians, it ruined their economy.
Right.
So as if it wasn't bad enough that all of these 10 plagues had happened, now the very economy of Egypt was overthrown because they gave the people, the individuals gave up their wealth. So not just the governmental structure was ruined, but also the common man in Egypt was also ruined.
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely understand that. It's a ongoing series regarding this kind of thing.
But let's go ahead and pick up. We're moving along to the prophecy that lets people know that the children of Israel were going to be taken not just from the land of Egypt, but also into the Americas, because we want to see that tie-in between what happened of old and what's going on today. Let's go to Genesis chapter 15 and just pick up something that was told to one of our forefathers. We're going to read Genesis chapter 15 and verse 12. And it says, And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, an horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that your seed shall be a stranger in the land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Obviously, this is not the captivity of Egypt, because that was 430 years. This is 400 years. And also, that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. So you see the parallel. Once again, it's said that they were going to come out of this captivity with great wealth, great substance, and probably in the same respect, spoil the people.
Right, thereby spoiling America, because the children of Israel taking that wealth just the same as the children of Israel took the wealth from the Egyptians. Yeah.
But isn't that part of the prophecy that America is going to fall?
Yes.
Okay. And where can we pick some of that up?
We can probably pick that up. We can pick that up in Isaiah.
Okay.
Isaiah.
Because, people are seeing what's going on. But as I said earlier, they think that there's going to be a happy ending. They've watched so many Hollywood movies that they're waiting for somebody to come and save America out of this trouble, not understanding that maybe this is not something that America could be saved out of. Maybe this is just the beginning of the end.
Right. And it's not just a glitch in the economy and things of that sort, or they call it a downturn.
Right.
And when you say downturn, that makes you think that, there's going to be an upturn. Right.
Sure.
But it's not a downturn.
Okay.
This is the course of events. Let's pick it up at Isaiah 47.
Okay.
And this whole chapter is talking about the destruction of America.
And where do you want to read from?
Let me see. Okay, let's start at 1 and kind of jump over.
Okay.
Verse 1 says, "Come down and sit in the dust."
47, right? Okay.
Yes. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. America is the daughter of Babylon. America imitates everything that comes from the original head of gold. So the image that was spoken of and dreamed of in the book of Daniel.
Sure.
And
Okay.
America is a virgin daughter. America is a virgin simply because she's never been invaded. Unlike the rest of the nations. And you talk about Babylon and you talk about when you talk about Europe has been, throughout the years have been decimated.
Decimated by war.
You're talking the World War I, World War II, not to mention any of their other skirmishes that they've had.
Right.
But America truly is that virgin.
Okay.
So, O virgin daughter of Babylon, sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. Once again, Babylon. For you shall no more be called tender and delicate. Take the millstones and grind meal. Uncover thy locks. Make bare thy leg. Uncover thy thigh. Pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness, thy evil wickedness, shall be uncovered. Yea, the shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance. I will not meet thee as a man. As for our Redeemer, Yahweh of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel. And I'll jump on down to, that's 6. I was wroth with my people. I have polluted mine inheritance, Israel, and given them into thine hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient have you very heavily laid thy yoke. Verse 7, and you said, I shall be a lady forever, Lady Liberty. So that you did not lay these things to thy heart, neither did you remember the latter end of it. Therefore, hear ye now this: thou art given to pleasures that dwelleth carelessly. Carelessly, that saith in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment and one day: the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection in the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thy enchantments. And America leads the way in all sorts of abominations. But it goes on from there, and the entire things. And I definitely suggest the audience go ahead and read the rest, because I know we have a time frame.
And you definitely hit upon something. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, because the children of Israel had to be separated from America so that America could fall. I wanted to pick up a few verses in Ezekiel, and go to Ezekiel chapter 20. And I'm going to pick it up in verse 33. And it says, As I live, saith Yahweh Elohim, surely with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out will I rule over you. And I will bring you out from the people and will gather you out of the countries wherein you were scattered with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there will I plead with you face to face. Like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness in the land of Egypt. So right there, if anybody has any question who this is directed at, it was directed at the people whose fathers he pleaded with in the wilderness in the land of Egypt. So will I plead with you, saith Yahweh Elohim. I'm going to jump down and pick it up at verse 44. And you shall know that I am Yahweh when I have wrought with you for my name's sake, not according to your wicked ways, nor according to your corrupt doings, as you mentioned, O you house of Israel, saith Yahweh Elohim. So truly, the children of Israel, because of the prophecy and the promises and the covenants that were made, are going to be taken out at the appointed time, as America has its great demise, which, as I said, we might actually be seeing the beginning of as we look. But it's not just America that really is at a point where it can fall at this point.
Right.
It's you talked about the daughter of Babylon. But things are also written about Babylon as well. And if you in Jeremiah 51, you see that there's some things that are written. Let's go to Jeremiah 51 and pick it up at verse 5, because there's so much prophecy that people need to be aware of so that they have a better understanding of what is going on in the world around them. It says, okay, now in verse 5 it says, for Israel hath not been forsaken, nor Judah of his Elohim, of his God, of Yahweh of hosts, though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. Flee out of the midst of Babylon, and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity. For this is the time of Yahweh's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense. Babylon hath been a golden cup in Yahweh's hand, that made all the drink drunken, and the nations have drunk of her wine throughout. Therefore the nations are mad. And what is that wine? It's a few things. It's the economic structure. It's the fact that Gentiles have ruled all the world. It's the religions of the world. All of these come out from Europe itself, and has gone out and has basically changed the way that the entire world does its day-to-day business. I mean, interesting point. The people think that there's a saying that says that people are either Jew or Gentile, but they don't understand that the Gentiles were the nations that were in the Gentile lands.
Right.
Well, they didn't want to be known as Gentiles. They wanted to be known as something else, so they named themselves after a pagan deity, Europa. And so they call their land Europe. But they can't hide. I mean, God knows who they are.
Right.
And these prophecies call out what's going to happen to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you speak about the those things that are which to come, and I think even those people who don't deal with the scriptures very much, they have at least heard of this number of a man, this number 666.
I mean, even if they've only heard of Bob Marley, he talked about Babylon.
Right. Yeah,
So. Yeah. There's a hint right there.
Absolutely. Let me go towards Revelations.
All right.
Okay. Revelations 13, and just read a little bit there. Because you were speaking about, not just we know America's gonna, it's gonna fall, but then the entire world is coming up under this global collapse, just like you stated previously. And let's skip on to, let's skip on to verse 15. And he had the power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as the world as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Worshiping the image of beasts and getting killed. That sounds familiar. We read that earlier in the Old Testament. Okay, verse 16. And he caused all, both and he caused all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Verse 17. That no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, which equates to 666. And what some people have, have come to understand that this number of a man, and when you go back and read the rest of 13, you'll find that some of this is talking about the Pope, and his is the number that would they be taken. And when everyone, the Pope has a name. And his name is a Latin name. And when you
Right.
break down the name, which is Vicarius Filii Dei, and if we recall from elementary school, the letters inside of Rome, we have Roman letters,
numerals.
Roman numerals, exactly, just like the V is a 5, and so forth and so on. And when you give the numerical basis behind that title, which means the representative Son of God, that's what the Pope is known as. Vicarius Filii Dei comes out to be 666 when you equate all of the numbers that are connected to each of the letters that this comes from. So that is the that is the actual number that man, woman, child at this point in time who desire to take this mark would be taking.
But in essence, they would be taking it because they have to take it in order to buy or sell. Therefore, in order to live. So I mean, it's deep when you think about it. People are going to be forced to do unrighteously. I mean, now they can choose to do unrighteously.
Right.
Now we're talking about a time where they're going to be forced to do unrighteously or die.
Right, exactly. And we also, we read later on also in Revelations where that, many of these people who refuse will be beheaded. And we also read that, we know about the resurrection and everything else for those people who, who didn't take this. We also read about what happened to the people who take that mark. Those people who take that mark, yeah.
It doesn't end well.
Doesn't end well.
All right, well, we talked about the prophecy, we talked about the economic collapse. So as people are sitting watching this, what is it that they're supposed to do? I mean, what is it that where is their hope? I guess is really the best way of putting it. What is it that the people are looking for once the collapse takes place? I mean, there's a lot of prophecy about the children of Israel going into the wilderness and what happens past that as well. Let's go ahead and pick up Daniel chapter 7 and go to verse 13. And where am I at? Daniel 7 verse 13. I'll just read it from here. It says, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came from the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and brought him near before me. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom, that which shall not be destroyed. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit in the midst of my body, and the vision of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by, and asked him the truth of all this. So he said to me, and made me know the interpretation of the things. These great beasts which are four kings which shall rise out of the earth, but the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Now, once again, this is all talking about the saints of the Most High. So there are specific people that this is talking about. And you always hear preachers and people who say that they know about what the Bible says, but they always speak in such general terms, whereas this is very specific about the people that are being called to go back in and take the land. It says the saints. Right. So it's talking about the people who keep the commandments of Yah and have the testimony of Yeshua. And that is the saints. Right. That's it. Right. According to what the Bible says. So, I mean, we have to, as we watch these things, we have to understand that there is, I mentioned that happy ending. There is an ending of things. And there, to some it may be happy, to some it may not. But there is a structure to exactly what is going on. Is not happening haphazardly at all. As you look at the things that are taking place in the world, you would think that people would turn back to something that gives them an idea of what they should be doing. Right. Because right now, everybody's pretty much lost. Right. You can pretty much tell that all of these different governments are sitting around trying to figure out what to do next. Or at least that's what they're telling the people.
Right, yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're right. I mean, like you said, regarding the saints and regarding the ending and everything else, regardless of what, someone, their lineage or what have you, there's a choice, either spiritual Israel or natural Israel. Everybody would actually be spiritual Israel, even if they're natural or not. Just whether or not, like you said, whether they take on being a saint, keeping Yahweh's laws. Exactly. And the testimony of Messiah, no doubt. Without a doubt.
The return of the Mashiach is something that has to be touched upon as well. When you talk about the things that are happening in the world today, the governmental structure that's in place, the people think that they are electing officials, not understanding that these things are really pretty much outside of the control of the common man, not understanding that Satan basically has full dominion over the earth, and the time of the Gentiles was said to be 2,520 years, and those two things are both coming to an end at the same time. Because truly, if Satan didn't have dominion over the earth, he would not have been able to offer it to the Messiah after the Messiah had his baptism, and walked the earth the first time. But he had offered him these things when the Messiah was weakened for his 40 days, and he turned him down. Right. But that's because the latter end speaks of the Mashiach's return and says that he was going to have his own dominion. Let's pick this up in Revelation chapter 20 and verse 1. And I'm just going to read a few verses here. It says, "And I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having the key to the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold of the dragon, that was old serpent, which is the devil, and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them which were beheaded, as you mentioned earlier, for the witness of Yeshua, and for the word of Yah, which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon his foreheads or in his hands, and they lived and reigned with the Messiah 1,000 years. So truly, that is what is the expectations of people who need to understand exactly what's going on. We've got about 5 minutes. We just wanted to wrap this up. Let's deal with the establishment of the righteous government, and let people know exactly what that government that was just talked about in Revelations is going to be.
Okay. In Revelations 21, "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I saw Johanan, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from Elohim out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of Elohim is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. And Elohim himself shall be with them, and will be their God. And Elohim shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I will make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. And so truly these are the things that we're looking forward to. And this is an everlasting kingdom that is coming. And what we read is the new heaven and new earth is coming down from heaven. So, the earth is meant to be inhabited. Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully you've gotten something from this discourse. We're coming to you from the Cultural Center of the New Covenant Congregation of Israel, 3901A Covington Highway, Decatur, Georgia. Our website is www.thencci.com. We have classes here on the Sabbath day, which is Saturday at 1 o'clock p.m. We also have a prophecy class, which is at 11 o'clock on Sunday. We have class on Tuesday at 8 o'clock, which is a history class, and I may have flip-flopped those two, but anyway, it's at Sunday at 11, Tuesday at 8, and we also have a class for sisters, which is Thursday, the 5th night at 8 p.m. Our phone number here is 404-286-5869. And as always, anytime we deal with a topic, if you've got any questions or want to do any follow-up, we want you to contact us. We want you to reach out and let us know what your questions are, because we obviously are constrained with time when we get these topics we're trying to get through. But we're trying to let you understand that this information is here for your learning and for your understanding. We've got a number of other things on our website that we'd like you to take a look at, and we've probably got just a couple of more minutes if you had anything else that you wanted to read or pass along, so people understand that this global collapse is impending and there really isn't a lot that people can do to stop it.
Right.
So even if it's not necessarily going to happen tomorrow, it's going to happen.
Right, right. And exactly. And, the love of money will be replaced with the love of righteousness. And, and even that statement, the love of money, many people think money is the root of evil, of all evil. But if we go to 1 Timothy 6 and 10, we'll see that it says, for the love of money is the root of all evil. And truly, that's a lot of the situation that goes on a regular basis.
And it's actually the love of money which has separated many people from righteousness, not understanding that it is the love of Yah and the love of the commandments, which are most important, and that these are the things that we want you to understand that you have to be about, because truly the time is short, and we are reaching out to you so that you will have a better understanding of exactly what you need to do in order to work out your own salvation. Once again, we're coming to you from the Cultural Center of the New Covenant Congregation of Israel. Peace and blessings. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you again soon. Shalom.